Clearly, we were just talking about the oil market reaction in particular following the weekend headlines. What do you think precipitated the decision perhaps to at least make some form of announcement tomorrow on this deal?
Well, the president had until Saturday to make it, but when the word we had from foreign leaders who have been through Washington in recent weeks, including the French President Emmanuel Macron and the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, was that the administration seemed to largely have its mind made up, and they were pessimistic. Those two leaders were pessimistic that the U.S. would stay in the deal. The particular timing, why tomorrow at 2, I don't think we have a good read on that, but the president was due to make the decision by Saturday. Now, as you mentioned, he could announce that the U.S. is withdrawing from the deal, and then what happens is these sanctions that he would not be waiving specifically target foreign banks that do business with Iran's oil sector. But there's no assessment of whether companies are violating those sanctions until November 8th. So there's basically a 180-day period after the U.S. reimposes sanctions, if that's what it does, before there's a report or an assessment done of who's violating those sanctions. So in theory, we think that buys a little bit of time for the U.S. and European governments to come to some sort of an understanding or a side agreement. But everything we've heard to date from people who have been meeting with the administration is that they have not been able to persuade the White House that it's worth staying in the deal.
But what about from the Iranian side here? Because they've been pretty clear, too, as saying, look, we're not renegotiating. This is set in stone. You'd expect that, because I'm sure they don't want to give anyone leverage here, that they're willing to come to the table and perhaps renegotiate in some way. But what you're saying is actually nothing changes. The president could come forward and say, look, we're going to rip up this deal. We want to renegotiate, and there's still time to renegotiate without anything changing.
We think that's the case, but, it will set a precedent. I think you'll hear a response from U.S. allies as well as countries like Russia and China that they are opposed to the U.S. decision. I don't think there's any reason to expect Iran to suddenly jumpstart its nuclear program, even if it thinks that the U.S. has withdrawn. But again, I think there's going to be this period of limbo where no one's really sure who is under the threat of sanctions, what Iran's response might be, and whether the Trump administration really can reach a deal with its allies on something that's maybe a little bit of a broader agreement.
It's kind of a continuation of limbo, actually. But, yeah, you make a great point.